Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're here for episode 3 now of the Daniel Duncan Show.
What's up, fans? Welcome back, episode 3.
We miss you guys. Thank everybody. Thank you guys for all the support on the last two videos. We really appreciate it. And yeah, how are you feeling today, Dan? How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Had a victory last night. Let me start off with that. 63 to 40 over Bellarmine, now 8-0 in the league.
Wow.
So we're feeling really good. Got a road win coming up, hopefully against Rogers. It's going to be a tough, hostile environment. So we got Rogers on Saturday night.
That's a big rivalry win right there.
Yeah, crosstown rivalry, one of the best teams that we faced. That's honestly the only crosstown rival close to us.
So for those of you who don't know, Dan is also a basketball coach, as well as a podcaster. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, he has a deep love for basketball and coaching, and yeah. So for this episode, we're gonna recap a little bit of what went down last week, playoff wise, and look forward to this upcoming Saturday and Sunday games. Let's start with the Saturday's games, Dan. Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's start off with those matchups.
So for this Saturday, we have obviously the 49ers and Packers and Baltimore and Houston as the other matchup. That's right. Um, let's start with the Baltimore and Houston matchup. Let's start in the AFC. I know this matchup, Dan, kind of has you a little bit confused. You know, you mentioned earlier that the Texans were your dark horse
Yep.
this whole year, but also let's not forget about how dominant Baltimore's been this year. So a definite clash of the Titans here in the second round of the playoffs. One seed versus, a extremely motivated Houston Texans team right now off of a blowout win over
45 to 14 over the Cleveland Browns.
that's right. And yeah, let's not forget to mention the fact that we went 5-1 in our picks last week.
5-1 record last week in our playoff picks.
And something that we really keyed on last week, especially in the Browns and Texans get matchup, was just how how key the matchup was as far as pass rush and getting Joe Flacco uncomfortable. And look at what happened. Two straight pick sixes that totally
Two
changed the
straight.
whole game. And so yeah, this Texans team, Dan, CJ Stroud proved once again. I mean, his pass, I think he had a perfect passer rating last week.
Yep.
Um, what are you looking forward to in this matchup?
I'm looking forward to the thing is that I've been looking at it for the last couple of days is, Stroud, the performance that he had, having that higher completion percentage rating and throwing the ball deep downfield. And then Houston, the defense, just getting pressure, hitting on Flacco, getting those interceptions. And they're going to go up against the best team in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. So
Hmm.
I look at both of those two teams. I mean, you take a look, Houston, they're a young team. Baltimore, they got the weapons, they got the experience, they got Lamar Jackson. Lamar needs to win this big playoff game. He's only appeared in a playoff game and he started it one time in his career. The last time he played, he wasn't there. He was injured. So, I mean, I take a look at Baltimore. They're the ultimate team. They're like the best team, defense, offense. So I'm just looking forward for them to just, hitting it on all cylinders all game long.
Like you said, they have yet to come, overcome the hump in the
Yeah,
playoffs in Lamar's career. And if you think about the pressure that Dallas has gotten as far as not, being able to get over the hump in the playoffs, um, there's a lot of similarities with how great the Ravens have been in the regular season, and just how many amazing defenses have been wasted by, tough injuries and, Lamar, he's got a very weak immune system.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
always sick on the injury report. So, um, yeah, but this is different this year. And, thinking about that game against the 49ers on Monday Night Football, um,
Christmas.
I think that was what really convinced everybody, for obvious reasons, that they were legit. And so, yeah, this is going to be a great game.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those great matchups. And also, you hit it right on the money. After when they played San Francisco, everyone was saying this is going to be a Super Bowl team. Once I saw that performance from Lamar and all the, defense getting after
Yeah,
Purdy, I was like,
yeah.
this is the team to beat. This is the ultimate team to like go on a run and get to the Super Bowl.
So do you like Baltimore in this one?
I'm gonna go with the Ravens. The thing is, it's gonna be a close game. Lamar is gonna do his thing. He's gonna, make those Houdini plays,
Oh yeah.
outside the pocket, running a lot, and look for Zay Flowers, look for Gus Edwards to have over 100 yards. So I have Baltimore winning this game. It's gonna be, I'm gonna say 27-21. I'm gonna say it's gonna be one of those close matchups.
Yeah, I like Baltimore in this one as well, in a close game for sure. Yeah, I'm very glad, these two teams get to meet in the playoffs. It sucks because I think quite a few people are rooting for the Texans as, just a
There's a
great.
lot of people on the internet rooting for Houston right now. They want Houston to go into Baltimore and upset the number one seed, and I just don't see it happen. They're a young team. They have a long time to develop Stroud and a long time to develop, their young players. So I mean, this is just a warm up for them. This is going to be one of the best teams in the AFC in the next coming years.
No question. And, similarly to the Packers on the NFC side, just to be here for the Texans and to
Yeah,
make it to the second round is a win. And it's a step in the right direction for the team. So should
let's
we
go.
move? Yeah, so should we move on? Or before we move on to the next Saturday matchup, um, Dan, what's on your feet today? Can we get a quick slipper?
Uh, Let me get to the flipper sack. I love doing this.
Pink
Bunnies are great.
bunnies?
Yep.
Pink
It's
bunnies.
Friday. It's Friday. If you remember, every Friday
Every
I'd walk to
Friday.
and I
Yep,
would wear the bunny slippers on campus.
that's right. No other pair on Friday. And another
Oh,
funny story. So ever since it's been a few months since Dan has been over to my house. And as you all know, Dan never leaves the house without a pair of slippers. But there's a reason why.
exactly.
There's a reason why, Dan, you haven't come over, and it's because I got a new
The
pup.
pug.
Yep. This is Lolly, and
What's up,
he
Lolly?
is a slipper thief. So,
The ultimate slipper thief. I've seen the photos.
yeah, like we mentioned, Dan got our family a few pairs of bunny slippers for Christmas, and the second they're off our feet, she likes to steal them. And so, Dan, I don't blame you for not wanting to come over because, like I said, as soon as you step in the door, she's going to notice those
Yeah.
pink bunnies and she's going to want
Yeah, that's why I'm like, dude, get over here. It's safer
them.
over here. I don't have any animals. All I got is the man cave with
That's
all the
right.
memorabilia.
That's
So
right.
so it's like, dude, come on over here. Get a break from that little rascal.
Oh man. But so moving on to the next Saturday matchup. Dan,
Dude.
I think probably uh we were very confident about this pick last week, Dallas Green Bay. I
Yeah,
think it was the most watched game last week, and I think it was over 48, 50 million people got a front row seat to watch
50
Dallas
mil.
just get dismantled.
Yeah.
The Packers walked in to Jerry World and just absolutely embarrassed Dallas. The
They
score
annihilated them. They just took care of business against Jerry's World and against the Cowboy team.
Absolutely. And one of our keys to the game last week was creating turnovers. And Dan and I, we had talked about how the Packers had yet to get a pick six all season and how it just felt right that in the playoffs, Dak Prescott would do Dak Prescott things. Not to discredit the great season that he had, but it's just there's a theme, there's a correlating theme going on where it's just amazing season and then collapse in the playoffs. And there's quite a bit of external pressure, being America's team and, having the most famous owner being so hands-on with the organization that there's quite a few people to blame. But that's the thing is everybody's
That's
focusing on where to blame, but not the fact that the youngest team, like you mentioned, the youngest team to ever make the playoffs just completely obliterated them.
over 50 years of teams. That was the youngest team to go into the playoffs, and they just destroyed Dallas. They didn't even want to get off the bus to begin with.
No, Dan, and the score line, it tells a different story. Dallas, they had 32 points at the end of it, but that game was over by the second quarter. You heard Kyle
Yeah,
Shanahan. He said that as soon as the first
he
half was
was
over.
preparing for Green Bay after when they had that 20-point lead in the second quarter. He was already prepared on the Packers.
That's right. And we were also just reiterating how big momentum factors in to matchups and a specific mentality, especially an underdog mentality, and how crucial that is. And, we were talking a little bit earlier this week, but as long as Aaron Rodgers was in town in Green Bay, they were never considered an underdog,
No,
Dan.
they were never. They were never considered an underdog when Rodgers was there. They would always be the heavy favorite. But this time, it meant a lot to just go in there as the underdog and have that one and oh mindset of just winning in the playoffs. Like they didn't care about, the critics, being all on Dallas and having Dallas win. They wanted to go in there with that one and oh mindset, with the fire inside of them to just win that playoff game.
So yeah, obviously what happened last week in Dallas, it's not going to happen this week. There is, as much as Dallas fans would hope that the Packers blow out the Niners to prove a point that, and make their loss feel a little bit less traumatic. Um, this 49ers team is,
They have it all. They
yeah,
have everything.
they have everything. And you think about, um, you know, all the 15 plus yard plays the Packers had last week and the middle of the field being
Yeah.
wide open. Um, I'm a little bit afraid as a Packers fan. The 49ers linebacker core is very strong in
It,
coverage. Fred
it is
Warner's been,
stacked.
traumatizing us for years. I mean, as a Seahawk fan, you know that as well.
Oh God, yeah.
But so, you know, as far as the 49ers and Packers go, they have quite a similar scheme. They like to cross the field quite a bit and really let their receivers do a lot after the catch. So, if you think about what happens in practice and your defense, you know, getting to practice against the offense, I feel like the 49ers have a great scheme and a great mindset going into this game because of the practice reps and being able to go up against a similar offense that they'll be playing in Green Bay, that has just, skyrocketed since the middle of the season. Um, how do you think that Green Bay is going to match up against? Do you think they'll be able to get away with the same things they got to do against Dallas?
No, they are not going to have the same kind of game that they had against Dallas, only because, I mean, you take a look at that 49ers defensive line, their linebacking core. The secondary, I mean, they have a couple ballers as well, but it's like every time when you see the Niners in the playoffs, it's like they're the hunted. They're like the team that just like gets out and annihilates whoever's wide open. They take away the big plays, the yards after the catch, and they're so physical and dominant, and it's going to be difficult for Love to see over the linebackers and to see over the secondary, getting those not just deep throws, but like check downs to like Dobbs or
Right.
Watson or Wicks. Like it's gonna be like they're gonna like take away those plays.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, that defensive line, um, it might be a 1 year thing, with contracts and Chase Young about to get quite a bit of
Yeah,
money as a free agent, but um, Aaron Jones is the rushing leader over the last month. He's had over 20 carries every game, over 100 yards. It's going to be a big test, but Green Bay has always relied on a strong running game early. Dan, what are your thoughts about Aaron Jones in this matchup?
I think Aaron Jones. I think he's gonna have over at least 100 yards because San Francisco. I mean, they've stopped the run a lot during this year, but when you face off against like a top tier back, and San Francisco has done it before, where they stop the back from getting over 100 yards rushing, but I don't think so in this one. I think Jones is going to get over 100 yards and he'll probably have like 2 or 3 touchdowns like last week.
That's
It's going to
right.
be tough.
Three
It's going
touchdowns
to
last week. Yeah, Dan, Aaron Jones' running style is one of the most unique things I've ever seen.
quick
Um,
to the ball. He's always quick when he
yeah,
gets off.
he kind of flails his arms a little bit. But he is able to make his body so small and just fit through the smallest of windows while maintaining just the most incredible balance.
Yeah.
And at 29 years old, Dan, you think about how injury riddled his career's been, but at the same
Uh-huh. Yeah.
time, that kind of allows him to get going at the playoffs and kind of have a little bit more fresh legs. Considering other running backs and what's happened as they've aged.
Yeah, and one other thing that I'd like to say about that San Francisco defense, and I've seen it as a Seahawks fan, playing them twice a year, is they always like if they have two linemen or three linemen rushing the quarterback, they're gonna sack Love. They're gonna get sacks on him.
Yeah.
They're gonna pressure him. Like he's not gonna have time to like get rid of the ball with the quick release throws. So one other thing that I was thinking of is if you get Jones running 20 to 30 carries with over 100 yards. I mean, that could be a plus for Green Bay.
Yeah, and Dallas had no sacks last week, but in almost every highlight throw that Jordan Love made, he had hands in his face. He
Yeah,
had to do the most incredible arm angle to get that out. Think about that, already having 41 points or whatever and deciding to go for it on fourth down.
fourth
And
down.
that throw to Dobbs, dude. I mean, obviously we can talk about the Rodgers connection, but let's just give Jordan Love his praise for who he is.
Absolutely.
He was able to
Yeah.
take what he learned from Aaron and run with it. This is not the same team, like we mentioned. They've never known how to be underdogs. Um, and Jordan Love just represents everything about this team, the youth, and just Dan, I don't think they know any better, going into these big name teams stadiums and just, not having a care in the world because nobody thought they'd be here. I like Green Bay for
Exactly.
this one.
I love San Francisco, and the only reason is because of their defense
That's right.
and and because of Debo Samuel, getting him in the backfield, having him as a receiver. So I'm gonna say I'm sorry. I'm gonna say San Francisco wins this one, 41-17.
Wow. Okay, I see how it is. No. That's gonna happen on the show. Last week we agreed on every pick, this week not. And um, you're that's extremely valid. But I want to think that this run isn't over, man. I want to think
It's
that.
not. And I was looking at this matchup all week. Like I went back and forth and I looked at the highlights from Love when he went up against Dallas last week. And I even looked at the San Francisco highlights from when they played against Baltimore. And
Hmm.
we all know that people are saying we're going to see Baltimore and San Francisco again for a Super Bowl. So Baltimore is the Super Bowl pick for me. We'll get later once we get towards the Super Bowl. We'll have a big show, but
That's right.
San Fran for me is the toughest team in the NFC.
Absolutely. And they're very deserving of this one seed. Had a very tough schedule this year and proved a lot outside of that Ravens game. Um, should we move on to Sunday's matchup, Stan?
Yeah, let's move on to the Sunday matchups.
Which game do you want to go over first?
Let's go over, I love to talk about Detroit and Tampa. Let's talk about that one.
Let's do it. All right. A very emotional game last week for Detroit.
Yeah.
Getting that playoff win. Um, it's, you can't not be happy for that city, and not to mention what their basketball team's been putting them through.
Yeah.
They deserve this, dude.
Yeah.
Um, but looking at this matchup, the Buccaneers, dude, like we
Oh
said,
yeah.
like we called last week,
Last week.
they beat Philly and not just beat them, they embarrassed them.
Yeah, it was an embarrassment for Philadelphia and for their fan base.
We'll talk about Philadelphia and also Dallas like we were earlier towards the end of the show, but um Baker Mayfield, dude, after being traded last year for a conditional fifth round pick, is now on the cusp of potentially going to the AFC Championship, dude. Talk about being written off as a Heisman, as a former number one pick, dude.
Oh yeah.
He is playing for a big contract next year.
He wants that money and he's deserving it. After Tampa got him and giving him that chance. And, Todd Bowles, when he got him, and even going back to when he was in Los Angeles last year with Sean McVay, the big thing with Mayfield was he wasn't being himself. And so McVay challenged him, hey, just be Baker Mayfield and have all this swagger that, he normally had when he was at Oklahoma and to just, have fun and enjoy the game and have, incredible teammates, make big plays. And that's what we saw last week from Tampa. It's the big trust factor that they had in Baker Mayfield, and he just went lights out on the Philadelphia Eagles. That game was over at halftime.
Yeah, another
Yeah,
common
another
theme, between Dallas and Philadelphia, NFC East, the tackling display was just
Oh gosh,
god awful.
atrocious.
Yeah. Um, a team that plays like that, they don't deserve to even be in the playoffs. And, whether that's a leadership thing or just a personnel issue, whatever it was, the Buccaneers exposed them, especially after getting beat earlier this year. But dude, they're gonna have to play. We've talked about motivation this whole show. So
Oh
many
yeah,
teams are so motivated. Detroit Lions, dude. One of your favorites
Detroit.
early in the year, you called them to win the NFC North. Um, How are you feeling going into this matchup?
I've been looking at it and I've been saying to myself, you know what? Those fans in Detroit are going to go insane when they step into the building on Sunday. They're going to be hooting and hollering, bringing that enthusiasm of just, they've waited so long. They've waited over 30 years to
Yeah.
have a chance to be in the playoffs and to have a big run like this. It's been since the Barry Sanders era of Detroit when Kid Rock would show up and have, that big Detroit Motor City mentality. And that's what this team's all about.
Yeah, there are so, and thinking about the offense and potentially their coordinator leaving, this has been one of the most fun offenses to watch all season. And thinking
Yeah.
about that number 12 pick last year, Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, I'll admit I was a little bit skeptical, considering how he was projected to go later in the round. Talk about having a plan for a player and, bringing the best out of them. They've been able to do that with so many people on offense this year.
Yeah, just having that personnel that, Ben Johnson brings, potential head coaching candidate wherever he goes.
Hmm.
But he's just, his offensive scheme, having, Gibbs in the backfield and lining up those receivers, like it's the greatest offense that I've seen all year long.
Yeah, and Jared Goff, it's funny to think that the team that traded him, you know, he had
He
gotten the
went up
Rams to the
against them.
Super Bowl, you know, at one point, but they didn't think he could get them over the hump, and so they sent him packing to, and you think about when they sent him to Detroit, that was like a prison sentence, man. Like that roster
Oh,
was
yeah.
gutted.
It was awful. It was an awful team when Dan Campbell took over and when they ended up getting Jared Goff out of that trade. But when they brought in Brad Holmes and when they brought in, Barry Sanders and Chris Spielman back to the front office, adding the legacy players to that front office, they had a vision, and right now it's working for them.
Yeah. Who do you like in this one?
Give me the Detroit Lions. I've been with them all season long. They've waited for 30 plus years to be in this deep run. I could see, Jared Goff throwing for 200 to 300 yards. I could see Gibbs rushing for 100, couple of touchdowns. This is going to be opposite of what Tampa Bay did to Philadelphia. I think Detroit wins by at least 20.
Yeah, let's not discredit the fact that um, you know, last year Tom Brady was the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had to go out and replace the, greatest quarterback of all time. Like, and so many people wrote them off. I remember seeing a video in training camp of Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield, overthrowing like every receiver in practice. But yeah, I agree. I think that the Lions will win this game. Um, there's just so many dimensions to their offense. Yeah, I like the Lions in this one too.
They're unstoppable. They're unfazable. Like they have everything. The thing is, I don't think Todd Bowles is going to stay longer in Tampa. They're going to re-sign Baker, but I think they need to find another head coach. They need another offensive coordinator, maybe another defensive coordinator, and just restructure the team a little bit because there's some aging stars on that team that are
Yeah.
just fizzling. And also for Detroit, Dan Campbell, I love that guy. He's been the motivator. He's gotten this team, from when he came in, he said, we're gonna win. I can't guarantee every win, but we're gonna win. And this is the tribute, the thank you for him coming in and revitalizing that franchise, getting them over the hurdle, over those, years of, lousy football and getting them to this point. It's just unbelievable.
Remember, they had to celebrate getting their first win a few years
Yeah.
ago.
Yep.
Like, you know, they've overcome quite a bit in such a short span. Um, should we move on to the last matchup for
Yeah.
this
Let's move on. Yeah.
Sunday? Alrighty.
Yep.
Um, Bills Chiefs, Dan. Two
Oh boy.
heavyweights. Um, they always find each other eventually, one way or another. And they have this year. The Dolphins, they did not put up an effort
No.
last week. That was embarrassing, and Frank the Tank was put through hell. Um,
Hell in the cell for Frank the Tank Fleming.
yeah, that was rough. But
Yeah.
we because we talked about the holes in the Chiefs lineup this year and how they were kind of exposed. Um, they used the weather to their advantage, definitely, but um, it was just a complete team win. Um, but on the other side, Buffalo is, like you mentioned last week, their offense is the hottest in the league right
Explosive.
now.
Yeah.
Or in the AFC, I'd say. How are you feeling going in this one?
I'm feeling like this is Buffalo's game to win. And the reason it is because, I mean, Kansas City, they have their holes. I mean, their defensive line is, stellar. Same with their linebacking core. And then you also have Mahomes and Kelsey on offense. That's all you have on offense. They don't have any receivers that can make the big plays except for Rashid Rice. So this is the best feeling in the world for Buffalo Bills fans. Being out in the cold again, Bills Mafia going crazy, breaking those tables, getting some Buffalo wings after this one. This is Buffalo's game to win, and they're the hottest team right now. They ever since they fired their offensive coordinator, they're 7-1. They're the hottest team right now in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm assuming Taylor will be making a trip to Buffalo this weekend.
It's a rumor. It's out there. She'll be there.
That's so funny to think about how many cities she's gotten to visit to this year. Um, and as much as Frank was upset at showing her on the screen, I mean,
Yeah.
for the most part, people being upset is because if the Chiefs are beating their team, she's just happy, she's just supporting, um, and she still has another week to look forward to,
Yeah.
and so, but but like you said, I think it's the Bills' time to finally take them down and make. I think KC has so many questions to answer this offseason compared to Buffalo. Um, yeah, I like Buffalo in this one. Josh Allen, over 50-yard run, rushing touchdown last week. He's had the fans excited all year. And
All season.
yeah, I like Buffalo in this one too.
Yeah, and then also add, like you just said, I mean Allen, but I mean once again, look for Kincaid, look for, James Cook, look for Stephon Diggs. He got involved in the offense. This is their game. This will be a track meet for Buffalo. Um, it's going to be close. It's going to be like the, game where Gabe Davis caught 4 touchdowns. The only thing is the Bills will secure the win. There won't be 13 seconds left on the clock. Buffalo will secure this one and they will win. I'm going to say 37-31.
Yeah, I like that score prediction. It has to be a close game. It's Chiefs Bills. Like it's basically a new rivalry at this point. And just, two of I mean, Mahomes 27 now, still young, but the faces of the league right now. But also we have a few other upcoming stars in Jordan Love and CJ Stroud who are,
Yep.
showing that their time is now. So yeah, I like Buffalo in this one. Um, yeah, one score game sounds about right.
Yeah, one score game and look for Davis, look for Diggs, look for Cook and Kincaid, and the defense will have about 4 or 5 sacks on Mahomes. He won't be doing his magic. He will have no magic show. The defense will just harass him wherever. They're going to get a couple interceptions off of him. They'll return one for a pick six. They'll go to the end zone with it.
Yeah. I mean, in the first round, two teams that moved on both had pick sixes in the Packers and the Texans. So turnovers are going to be the key in probably every matchup this week.
Yeah, you got to win that battle on defense and, winning the turnover battle and seizing on the momentum, capitalizing on the turnover.
You guys heard our picks for this week. We've covered those. But the things that a lot of people have been focusing on this week, not necessarily the victories of those who have moved on, but just the downfall of those from the NFC East that were represented,
Yep.
Philly and Dallas. Two of the biggest collapses we've seen of two, potential favorites for the Super Bowl this year, Dan. Where does, at least let's start with Philadelphia. Where does Philadelphia go after what the Buccaneers just did to them?
You know what? Philly has the slightest of chances of being a dominant team because they have all these big players that are going to be gutted by the salary cap. And also, they have a couple veterans that are on their way out of Philadelphia.
Yeah, you think about Hassan Reddick as, an amazing year he had last year. But he was a bit of a late bloomer. He's already getting up there in age. He's gonna be a big question. And then the man in the middle, the potential, he could have been the key part to the tush push all along. Jason
All
Kelsey, man.
along.
You
Jason
know,
Kelsey, what a career. Talk about, him playing for 13 years in Philadelphia, being the anchor of the offensive line, just, his presence. I mean, it's going to be one of those hard things to replace.
13 years and he never missed a single start, Dan.
Never missed a game or a start. He was the anchor of that offensive line.
Yeah, that was pretty tough watching him leave the field last week.
Yeah.
He's saying that he wants to, announce his retirement on his own. I know Adam Schefter kind of jumped the gun a little bit, didn't really give him time to speak. But yeah, that was a very emotional Jason Kelsey, probably leaving the field for the last time. And as much as, he's a lineman, uh,
Yeah.
he represented everything about that team, dude. And how he's going to be, as much as they have, upper management and coaching concerns that you'll probably want to cover. Um, he's going to be probably the biggest beast that's missed next year.
Oh, without a doubt. And then also, I mean, there's questions on that defensive line, Brandon Graham, him being the anchor stone of that defensive line. There's a lot of things for Philadelphia. You got to take a look at that team and look at all the pieces and look at, people that are going to come back or they're going to extend their contracts. But this is their window is closing. And I mentioned it to you yesterday when we were just texting. And I even commented on a video of Sirianni when he left the field against Kansas City. They
Hmm.
are not they are not ready for change.
No, Nick Sirianni, he had every right after last season to have that kind of boasting personality that he does, but it seems like that's kind of coming back and biting him. Um, you know, he could potentially be fired this year, and he just made the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
It shows you how much, your leadership has in control of what the outcome of the game is. And yeah. you know, it's going to be interesting where they go from here.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And also, I mean, I've heard rumors out there that Jeffrey Lurie wants to keep Sirianni, but he's going to end up getting fired. I mean, the way he led his team to 10-1 and then all of a sudden collapsing, the worst collapse that I've seen in, a long time with a team going 10-1 and then finishing, 1-6. I'd never seen that happen before. He just lost the mojo. He lost of, getting everyone, ready and prepared. And it's not just the preparation for the games, but it's also the way that he acted. It was disrespectful to see him, in Kansas City, walk off the field and tell the Chief fans to, I don't need to hear it anymore, yada, yada, yada. There were a couple other words. So, it's one of those things that can get you fired, and I can see it potentially happening.
Do you think Jalen Hurts? Do you think there's any question marks there, or do you think he's solidified himself where he is?
I think Jalen Hurts, I mean, he's going to be their quarterback for the future. He'll stay there. The thing is bulking up that offensive line with Kelsey retiring. Who are the playmakers going to be next year? And also, I mean, finding the right offensive coordinator is one of those big factors that's really going to help Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the efficiency of the tush push next year will be, um, quite worse. But the team, Dan, that, took the crown from them this year in the NFC Championship, or yeah, in the NFC East, Dallas,
Cowboys,
they got embarrassed even worse. And uh, the common theme every year, this is our year, this is our year, blah blah
they
blah.
keep on saying it, and they choke in the playoffs. That's the thing about the Cowboys. They always, think, oh, this is our year to go to the Super Bowl. We have a stacked team. We have everything. You don't show up in the playoffs. You choke. And I love seeing, I keep on watching it, this fan get into his truck and run over the TV.
That's right.
That's how Cowboy fans feel after a playoff game.
Here, I'm gonna pause this real quick. My mom just got home and the dog's going crazy, but it'll be. And also, earlier this week, Dallas made the decision to stick with Mike McCarthy to many fans' dismay. Obviously they thought he wasn't the problem then, Dan. But that then shifts the blame to Dak Prescott and his playoff
Yeah.
credibility. Do you think he's the man for the job for the foreseeable future in Dallas?
For the future in Dallas, no, he is not the future. He has lost it completely. He's not even the same guy that he was, a couple of seasons ago when he first came out, from Mississippi State, when he had Ezekiel Elliott and all those other, Des Bryant and all those other playmakers. He's not the same quarterback.
No, and it just, you feel for Dak and what he's overcome. But just those small mental mistakes, like as soon as he threw that pass to Darnell Savage last week, you could read his lips like, "Oh crap!" Like,
Yeah.
but it's just you gotta tighten those up, and it's just the trend that continues to happen. And Jerry's getting very desperate right now. They're looking to, point the blame. But at the end of the day, however long Jerry's been there, have they ever won anything?
I mean, they've only won like a playoff game, and that was back when Tony Romo was a quarterback, 2009 against Philadelphia. That was the last time they won a big playoff game.
Yeah, a big playoff game. But yeah, Jerry has just never been able to figure it out. And
No.
it was hilarious watching um, Coach Johnson just
It
screaming.
looked like he wanted to take over the
Coach
team.
Jimmy Johnson was screaming at everybody in America about to have a heart attack. It was intense.
Yeah. And he, to be honest, I mean, Jimmy, I mean, him winning two Super Bowls and him, being a head football coach, I thought Jerry was going to like call him from Fox and say, "Hey, we need you on the field. Would you
Yeah.
coach us?" Because there was no motivation, there was no nothing from Mike McCarthy.
No, not at all. Yeah, and so yeah, you guys heard it here first. Jimmy Johnson, the only thing that could have saved Dallas. Um, you know, man, it's gonna be tough. Um, as fans, it's honestly fun to see teams like Philly and Dallas struggling. I'm sorry, but
They're the biggest chokers in
they are the
America.
biggest chokers, man. Um, but yeah, any final thoughts, Dan, on this upcoming playoff weekend?
I'm expecting, to see the best matchups, the best playmakers just like attack and like go off and just, have a ball. And that's one thing that, we saw last week, with our picks. We were watching those games. We had a 5-1 record. And now this week we got the divisional round. So, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm always pumped up for these NFL playoff games.
Yeah. Um, it's going to be a very fun weekend. Um, I hope it tops next weekend, and I hope the Packers' magical run doesn't end, you know.
It's
Um,
going to. I'm sorry.
I don't know the last time I had more fun watching a game than last weekend, dude. Oh man, I,
NFC championship game.
gosh, dude, stop it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh man, dude.
You remember that guy, Brandon Bostic?
Dude, he was cut like as soon as the game was over.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, it's been a good time, recording episode 3 today. Um,
Episode 3.
yeah, very dominated by football, our show is so far. And rightfully so. It's the playoffs and it's the heart of the football season. So we're glad to give you guys football content, NFL content right now.
Yep.
Um, So yeah, we'll look forward to next week's matchups and hopefully recap potential Packers victory, Dan.
No, that won't happen. San Fran's gonna blow them out. Like I said, this is our road to the Super Bowl. This is our, live coverage of, football. This is the hardcore of the football season right here, all the way to the Super Bowl. And I love it. I always love this time of year.
Yep, and we'll be there every step of the way to give you guys our takes and how we're feeling going into this. So, um yeah, that's been episode 3. Daniel Duncan show. Kellen Morad signing off.
Daniel Duncan signing off. See you
Alrighty.
later.
We'll see you guys later.